Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Narrative. Today I am joined with the incredible painter Chris Martin. I feel very lucky to be having this conversation. I started this podcast because I wanted to take what I was doing on Instagram, which was doing a lot of image research, and broaden it into actual conversations with people and connect with people. And I feel really lucky to have this conversation with Chris today, who's an artist I've looked up to for a long time. And my first question for Chris is, when did you realize you were an artist?
Um, I was in high school. I was in ninth grade, and I was copying a Picasso painting, making a tempera copy, a loose copy, and I was listening to James Brown records over and over. And I was drinking Coca-Cola, so I had a good sugar high. And it just came to me. This is it. I love painting. So I think I realized later that that was unusual to sort of know or what you wanted to do. What about you? When did you realize you were an artist?
For me, I did this summer camp called Interlochen, and I took this textile arts class, and the teacher showed us Yves Klein's Blue piece and then also Shannon Moulton videos. And just the combination of them, I was just like, whoa, you can do anything with art. And it just like blew my mind. And I went to arts high school. I'd been doing art, but I didn't think I could be an artist. I didn't think it was possible. And I just started making stuff that I had no idea what it was, but I just started going and
Good for
making
you.
things. And yeah, now I'm here. I think art school kind of derailed that confidence a little bit, but I'm getting it back now.
That you're talking about RISD
Yeah,
as an undergraduate or a graduate?
undergrad.
Yeah, art schools are terrible. Uh, but you get to meet other future comrades, and yeah.
No, I agree. I really resonated with your stance on arts education. I think art school really introduced me to a lot of really great people, but I think especially the way they teach drawing there is so strict that it made me really not believe in myself as a drawer or that I could even paint. And I think that's a weird thing to do to young people.
Yeah, for all of you enrolled in graduate or art schools, don't let the bastards get you down.
Love that. And then another question I had was, when did you start making big paintings?
Um, I I was always interested in making the biggest paintings I could, and I gradually got up to, I don't know, 6 foot paintings. Um, Maybe in high school I did a couple of big paintings, and then in college always wanted to make really big things. When I dropped out of college and came to New York City in 75, I think, I had a small apartment, but I made the biggest paintings I could, um, which became a lifelong problem because I had a storage problem.
Yeah, a lot of New Yorkers do. What led you to drop out of Yale and move to Brooklyn? Like, what was the thought process going on there? Do you remember?
Well, I was in a college where the undergraduate art was taught in the same building as the graduate school. So I could go and listen to the graduate school crits, and I met the graduate students, and they were all going to New York City. Um, a professor of mine, Al Held, a painter, had a show up at the Whitney Museum. This must be 74. And I just thought that that was the greatest show. So I felt, well, you know, fuck this. I'm going to go to New York. Everyone else is going to go to New York sooner or later. So I took a few months in the country and then came to the city.
It's awesome. And what was it like in the 70s compared to now?
Well, it's kind of an unrecognizable s- s- change. I mean, um, there were a lot of vacant lots all over Soho downtown, a lot of falling down buildings. My apartment rent was $125 a month, um, which was more
It
money
was
then,
different
but
then,
still.
yeah.
Um, Many people had very large lofts for $300 a month or whatever. There was lots of empty space, and there was also a lot of crime. I was Apartment was broken into 3 times within the first few months.
Wow.
Um, but I was lucky. I was never, shot or whatever. Um, I'm guessing that New York in those days was something like Detroit is now, maybe, or Berlin was in the 90s. I feel there are always places where it's cheap to live and there's a gathering of young creative people.
Do you still feel like New York is a good place for young artists to move to?
Well, I know a lot of young artists here and they're really working hard and doing great, having fun, which is very important. Maybe Los Angeles is easier.
Mm,
Um, it's a different world now with iPhones and media, and um, I think that there are places in New York, Bed-Stuy or Crown Heights or the Bronx. There are places. Where do you live in Brooklyn?
I'm like right in Crown Heights,
Right,
essentially.
right.
I'm like right
Uh,
on the border between Prospect and Crown Heights.
yeah, so there are places where you can find some space and be around people you need to talk to.
Yeah. I grew up in New York too, so I feel lucky to have been in the city for this long and to see it. At least when I was growing up, it was definitely like less as built up as it is today, but um, yeah, I love it here. I couldn't go anywhere else.
Oh, you're a sophisticated New York kid.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, New York. You raise kids in New York, so you know what it's like.
Right. The other thing is the amount of galleries and museums is gigantic compared to anywhere else.
Yeah.
So there's too much to see at any one time, but that's very special and very important, I think.
No, I totally agree. I feel like growing up here and just getting to go see certain shows, like I got to see when I was 16 the Maurizio Catalan retrospective at the Guggenheim. To see all that work just hanging in the middle totally blew my mind, and really, I don't know, just being around all that art, you feel it, and I think it's like no other city in the world. But I'm a New Yorker, so I have to say that.
All true.
Yeah. And so you worked for a long time as an art therapist, and I was really interested in Joseph Beuys as an influence in you becoming an art therapist. How did he influence you?
Well, I was always interested in his drawings. He had a gigantic retrospective at the Guggenheim Museum. That must have been 78, 79. And I went to that show a lot. I had a kind of transformative personal experience with one of the sculptures. And so after that experience, I was obsessed with him and I read about him, got all the books. And his approach was that art could be a healing activity, both for the artists themselves and for the larger tribe and culture. He had been fighting in World War II. He had been wounded several times. He had a metal plate in his head.
Wow.
Which is why he always wore a hat, by the way, to keep the
Oh,
sun off his head.
oh, I didn't
But
know.
he was obviously, what do we call it now? PTSD. So he
Hmm.
was a profoundly wounded person, and he, in a kind of shamanic way, found ways to heal himself. And then he had this whole messianic kind of message for Germany and the world. Um, and he became this great teacher. So uh, he he influenced me when I needed a serious job. I was at a crisis point in my own life, and I went back and studied art therapy and got an undergraduate certificate in art therapy at the School of Visual Arts. At that time, the AIDS epidemic was really wrecking uh, the artistic and the gay community in New York. I had lost several friends to HIV, and I ended up working as a therapist in an AIDS day treatment program with clients that were um, dealing with their physical illness. Many of them were also dealing with mental illness and also drug addiction and various things. So it was a very challenging and then also a very beautiful uh, kind of community that I found myself in. I worked in Harlem in a residential community, and then I worked in Red Hook, Brooklyn in 92, 93, 94, when that was a profoundly dangerous neighborhood. And then I worked at a place called Rivington House on the Lower East Side for 9 years. Um,
Did working as an art therapist change your perspective on the art world?
very much. I also had kind of withdrawn from the art world. Um, I mean, I remember when I was working in Harlem and Red Hook, I was one of the few white uh, people in the room. Most of the clients were African American, Hispanic, almost all the staff. And I remember when I would go to openings, I was suddenly conscious, oh my God, I'm in a room full of white people. And I would be a little anxious about that. So I think, first of all, it showed me uh, how removed the art world was from most of New York. And then, of course, the inspiring sense that the people I was working with were making wonderful, uh, really raw art, which again contrasted with the very kind of formal, stylized uh, stuff that was successful in the art world.
That's really interesting. What kind of exercises would you do with patients?
Well, in the day treatment setting, I ended up running talk therapy groups. We ended up having, there was a day room, and I would have art supplies out, and people would, if they were self motivated, I would try to get them to do any kind of painting or drawing. Um, we also had a drumming group. We played music all the time, great music. A lot of the clients were around my age. At this point, the AIDS epidemic had shifted from just gay men to uh, IV drug users. So in Red Hook, the community was half gay men, but half people were long-term IV drug users who had had very colorful criminal histories. Many people were released from prison on compassionate release. They were trying to get uh, slow the spread of AIDS in prison. Um, but you got to understand that the day to day was also filled with a lot of humor, a lot of love, a lot of eccentric, crazy activities. At that time, people were very scared that they could get HIV maybe by touching someone or kissing them or sharing a can of soda. So a number of our residents in the program were being shunned by their family.
It's terrible.
So normally in a therapeutic setting, you don't do a lot of touching to set boundaries. But in this case, we went out of our way to really hug everyone in the morning. And there was a lot of touching and holding, and because that was something that people were not, people were afraid of them.
It's so beautiful.
Um, Seems like a long time ago.
Yeah. No, I definitely, I mean, it's reminiscent of what happened in 2020, but so different. I mean, the world didn't shut down for the AIDS pandemic. Um, but I
I
wanted to
think
read a. Oh, sorry, what were you
the
saying?
the pandemic definitely brought up a lot of painful memories for uh, survivors and those living with HIV. It did. It did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I wanted to read this quote from an article you published in the Brooklyn Rail from 2005 entitled Buddhism Landscaped in the Absolute Truth About Abstract Painting. And the quote is Paintings are not facts, they are invitations to the dance. If you stuff a painting into a pillowcase, you will only have a pillowcase full of dirt. When we try to seize paintings and fix the meaning, it dies before our eyes. And I really resonated with this quote, and I was just curious how you feel about it today and what it means to you.
Well, uh, the artist Peter Atchison and the architect and good friend Chris Keeney and I were driving around the Southwest. Uh, we had a van, and we just would take a couple of months and just drive around randomly. At one point, I was really sick with a cold, so I checked into a motel near Las Vegas. And Chris and Peter went out and took some very powerful LSD in the Red Rock Desert around Vegas. So the next day when they picked me up in the van, I got in the van and all these pillowcases were stuffed with dirt. And I was going, yo, fellas, what's up? And, and they said that, well, last night when the setting sun was hitting all the rocks, these red rocks, the rocks were glowing like jewels and rubies. So we felt we had to save all this stuff. So we grabbed as much as we could and put it in the pillowcases.
That's awesome.
So that was they were a little sheepish about all the dirt in the back of the van. Um,
That's really
so does that
cool.
answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It reminds me of Forrest Best. I've been thinking a lot about him and researching you, and he talks a lot about the red rocks and red rocks as being like part of his vision. So it makes sense that it would come to them through the LSD as well. Um, and thinking about drugs and spirituality, I guess, like what I think your work to me, why I really connect with it, is it has this universal power that just draws you to it, but it just has this energy that is really profound. And I was wondering what spirituality means to you just in general.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I think people in our society tend to think of spirituality as something added on to reality. Like we all know what's real. This chair is real. Cars are real. The economy is supposed to be real. Get a job, be part of the real world. But actually, spirituality is an investigation of what really is here. What's life? I saw this physicist on YouTube the other day, and he was saying, there's a line in a musical, Hair, that says we are stardust, hippie stuff. We're stardust. And this guy with like serious glasses and a tie and a jacket, he's going, well, actually, yes, all the protons and electrons and neutrons that make up your body are born in exploding stars. And so we are literally stardust. Although he said this in a more technical, sober way. So, that's what the scientists are telling us. Um, so, spirituality is a chance to investigate what is actually going on inside of our minds and hearts and bodies or whatever. Um,
And speaking of what's going on inside of our minds, I was curious how you visualize things. Do you see things in your head in still images or in moving images? Like, how do you, when you think and close your eyes, how do you see?
wow, that's kind of Forrest Best stuff there.
A little
Uh,
bit.
he claimed that he could close his eyes and he was painting the after images that he saw. Um, I tried that, but I couldn't get any clearer. Well, I do a lot of just doodling and drawing around. And I think that's sort of the basis for starting paintings, or maybe not really. Um, Sometimes I think of approaching paintings that it's really just about moving material from some containers onto another place. Um, there's a Monty Python skit about the society for putting things on top of other things. And so that's kind of what we do as painter. We take colored plastic dirt or oil based dirt and we put it on top of other surfaces. Um, Watching my children when they were young making paintings, we would sometimes sit down to make paintings together. And I would be kind of organizing my brushes, whatever. And they would sit down, pick up a brush, and just start a painting. And that always impressed the hell out of me that they were just something flashed in their consciousness and they just dove in. So it's very rare that that happens to me, but it's lovely and when that does happen.
Do you have any tips for getting unstuck when you're stuck on a painting?
Well, you can just destroy the fucking thing, start again. Um, Play. Stuckness, is that a word? Stuckness? So I think getting stuck happens when we are uh, we're judging ourselves very intently. So we're stuck because we're feeling that it's not any good, and then we're not any good, and we were never any good, or whatever. And this is the kind of critical emphasis that is hammered into art students that's so uh, harmful.
Yeah.
And the sense that you can play without judging whether this is going to be a good painting or is it good enough or um, to get there you can trick yourself. Um, Sometimes if you're making things that you're not going to show to anybody, you know, when people are teenagers, they keep journals that are like secret, and you make your drawings or you write things down. And the fact that no one is going to read this or see this gives you a freedom because you're not going to get judged. You don't have to bring it to the second year painting crit. And then people are going to go, well, this isn't so good, too much red, you could have done it differently, all of that. So getting unstuck, um, I can tell you a funny story.
Go for it.
I was, someone got sick and I was asked to teach a few courses for a semester at Bard College. This was many years ago. And I was teaching this some seniors, painters. And there was one woman, a lovely person, and she was always complaining about how she didn't like her paintings and everything was going badly and she hated her paintings. So for most of the semester, I was saying, oh, come on. your paintings aren't so bad. Make some more paintings. You can be good, you know. Finally, I got really tired of it. And I said, okay, you hate your paintings. Um, do you want to destroy? She said, I want to destroy my paintings. So I said, well, how do you want to destroy them? So we thought maybe we could burn her paintings that she didn't like. So we went outside, and there was a fire pit outside the art building, and we started a fire. And she brought some of her paintings out, and we started burning some of her paintings.
Wow.
So, and she was feeling a lot of energy. She was feeling good. And then the other students were walking by going, what are you guys doing? And I said, we're burning her paintings. And so they were saying stuff like, well, can I burn one of my paintings? And pretty soon there were a lot of students bringing all of these drawings and paintings to be burned, to add to this bonfire. And some people didn't have any paintings they wanted to burn, so they made a fresh painting right there so that they could burn it.
It's awesome.
And when they knew that the painting was going to be burned, they made really good paintings. And then people were saying, they were saying, I don't want to burn this. I just made a good one. But then the whole group is going, no, you have to burn it. You have to burn it. So it was an interesting case where when people knew they were going to burn a painting, they made a lovely painting, really funny, free uh, painting. Um,
So start fires is the
yeah,
method. Start burning things. I love that.
don't try this in your apartment in Brooklyn.
No, definitely not. I don't have things might get on fire, but it won't be on purpose. Or because I left like incense burning or something. Um, but I think all right. Let me like all these pieces of paper spread out with questions. But I think maybe it's time to start looking at some of your paintings, if that's cool. I can pull them up. All right. Can you see them?
I'm waiting. Hold on. Yes, I see.
So I wanted to ask you about these pillow paintings. Um, where did you get the idea to start painting on pillows?
I think I had done a small painting with a small throw pillow. You know, my wife and I, the painter Tamara Gonzalez, were living at that time up that was up in the Catskills at her house in Walton, New York. And you know, bunch of pillows were getting kind of ratty. So we went, we got to get rid of these pillows. We're going to buy some new pillows. So we had the old pillows, and somehow I thought of putting them on a painting. Uh, and it turned out that it was a big mess because the pillows sort of absorbed all this paint, and I was trying to figure out how to glue it to the canvas with paint,
That's hard.
and it didn't dry for a long time, and um, but it was kind of hilarious. And then I made a second pillow painting, which is on the left, with using acrylic.
Yeah, I really love these pieces. I think I really love how you use unconventional objects in paintings, like bread, pillows. Um, I think I was listening to a Rauschenberg interview, and someone was asking him about the stuff in his work, and he's like, "Oh, it's just stuff I have." You just kind of got to use the things that are around you, and
Right.
I and I relate to that, especially living in a small New York apartment. You kind of just have to deal with what you got.
Right.
Um, and then I wanted to look at these paintings. I'm really curious about the symbols in these paintings and what they mean to you.
Hold on one second. Yes. Sorry. Tamara was asking me what I'm doing. Okay. When we were up in Walton, there was a guy that had painted his car. Many of these symbols were painted on his car. They're like the Ankh, the pyramid, I think a peace sign. I might have added some, like, I think I added the palm trees or whatever. And I remember actually following him around. He drove by and I jumped in my car and I followed him down to the trailer park. And I said, dude, I think I scared him at first. I'm glad he didn't shoot me. But then I said, dude, I love your car. And I took pictures of the car and it was very inspiring, just really great. He wasn't an artist. He was just someone that um, wanted to put this stuff on his car. Now, obviously, a peace sign or a pyramid or what all these things, they're things we know, like a what is it? It's a cliche or it's whatever. But it's also a real form that has been appropriated by Afrofuturist artists that I was involved in. I grew up in the 60s with all these hippie posters, which I loved. And so I thought this was something I could use.
Yeah. And I think for those looking at these paintings, these ones aren't super big, but we're going to start looking at some super big paintings. So I want you to use your imagination to. It's really hard to see Chris's work just on this tiny screen. Um, like this painting is pretty big, I think, or maybe it's not. I couldn't get the inches, but this one I really loved because it uses those symbols again, but um, it also is kind of like a map to me. And I was curious about the title. If you don't see it, ask for it. Where does that come from?
Wow, I don't remember. I think this painting is about 6 feet tall, and it looks like chicken and star maps. Oh, and there's a something from an album or a poster.
Oh yeah, in the corner there.
Oh, I think the top left corner of that painting has a cartoon that I cut out of a Playboy magazine. And I think that was like the punchline or something.
Oh, cool. I some of my first my RISD portfolio actually was like a lot of collages I made with Playboy magazine cutouts. Um, the like 70s ones had so many good cartoons in them, and I found some on the street, and it really inspired me when I was in high school. They're so cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I felt really mischievous about it, having the Playboys in my high school art room. Um, and then I wanted to talk about this show. I love the way they installed it outside. And you love seeing your paintings outdoors. And I was curious, um, why do you like to put art outside?
One of my biggest inspirations living in New York City or just in America is all the fantastic street art. I don't like that word graffiti, but whatever you want to call it. Um, and that stuff influenced me, it continues to influence me. Right now, I'm obsessed with this crew and around Lower East Side in Manhattan called the ICBM crew, featuring Wombat or Cancer Carl or there's a number of people that zigzag. I don't know all these people, but they're tremendously good painters, and they give me these paintings all over town. So it's they've not worried about when the art dealer will come over, and they're giving their paintings to the citizens of New York. So that's a I think that's a kind of wonderful thing to have paintings that we can see all over town.
Agreed.
So I've been doing that for some time. I used to just put little paintings on walls in Williamsburg, um, and the opportunity to put paintings outside is really great if I can get some help. In this case, this painting was in a box which had neon light inside of it. So this is out in Los Angeles where there's all these great billboards and neon. So I thought I would give people driving by a painting.
I love it. Yeah, I think I have more pictures of the installation during the day and night at that gallery. I really
Oh,
love
nice.
the way it looks. And I love it reminds me of some of my favorite art growing up in the city was just seeing the posters. They don't do this as much anymore, but on like phone booths and bus stops
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
neon lights in the background, and it really reminded me of those backlit posters. And sometimes someone would rip one up or it would get smashed and it would look
Well,
really
I really
cool.
dig the sticker culture that's you find all over New York too, where people are, and then somebody puts a few stickers on a door, and then somebody else, and you get a door that's covered with like 30 different stickers. So there's a lot to see in New York City.
Yeah. No, I think the streets are full of inspiration always.
Yeah.
And then I was just curious about these frogs. I just love them. Uh, why the frogs?
Well, I grew up in the Catskill Mountains a lot of my youth, and I loved frogs. I don't know, catching frogs. Um, and I think at a certain point, reading about global warming and the mass extinction that is taking place all over the planet, there was this focus on the frogs that were disappearing.
Hmm.
And I think I found that one in the center was a picture of some particular uh, am, frog from the Amazon.
Hmm. Um, and then the next painting I wanted to talk about, um, I I love this painting, and I really love Amy Winehouse a lot, and I think that's something that really drew me to your work initially was your love of Amy. I think it's cool that like cross generationally, like she really spoke to me, especially in high school. Like her music and just her as a person really gave me a lot of permission. I feel like to be myself, and she was
Oh,
just so
great.
iconic. And like, yeah, she's just a really big someone I listen to a lot and think about a lot. And um, my question was, what influence has she had on your work?
When I first heard her music, I thought she was an African American woman about my age, parts of the arrangements, but I just felt there was this great soulful um, genius there. And then when I found out she was a Cockney girl from London, it was sort of amazing. Um, I remember my daughter, my oldest daughter, I'm going through a breakup with some girlfriend, and we were listening to Amy Winehouse in the car driving somewhere, and we were both kind of crying. I was crying. um,
Oh,
but so I, like everyone, I was in love with the music, and then like many people, I sensed that she was self-destructing, that the pressure on her was that she was in danger. And I made a bunch of paintings where I cut out her photographs. And my daughter had just come back from Turkey. And in Turkey, they have these, and Greece, maybe these glass blue circles with a sort of an eye in the center. And it's supposed to be like repels bad forces, like evil eye, keep away. I think a lot of houses in that whole area have the thing over their door or something to repel. So I was putting her photograph in the paintings and then surrounding her with these, you know, keep away the bad forces, uh, talismans. And I thought maybe I could save her.
hmm.
Obviously, I didn't save her, and um, and so there's this genius of a woman who is destroyed by the intense pressures of this consumer society crazy culture. And it was so tragic. Everyone could see this happen, and somehow no one could step in and save her. So it's something very haunting, and the music is so profound.
Yes.
So for a while, I was just putting photographs of her on the sides of the painting, um, inside the painting, on the back. I would just. Uh, and my friend Joyce Pensato was also obsessed with Amy and making paintings, drawings about Amy.
I love Joyce's work as well.
Yeah.
Incredible artist. I'm sorry for your loss. Seems like an amazing person to be friends with and work with. Um, and here's some more Amy's.
Yeah.
These ones are very Warhol. Was that something you were thinking about when you were making them?
The one on the left, the fact that it's this gold, and I was going to paint in features, and then I didn't, and it does have a very Warhol feeling because he is turning similarly tragic, iconic cultural figures. You know, he's turning them into like Christian icons, like Catholic icons. Uh,
Totally. And then this one, I has Amy's on the side, but also I noticed with this painting is it seems kind of like a dictionary of like other paintings. Like there's little pictures of some of your other paintings in it. Um, and I was just curious about that.
Well, this painting started with a few collage elements, photographs of mine that I blew up, collage things that I found in magazines, photographs of my own, details of my own paintings. And it gradually filled up. There was a wonderful press release that I know her. Her name is Ruth Root. She's a good painter. And instead of the normal gallery press release, she sent out a page full of images of all the artists she was interested in and just images that interested her. And it was very clever and really uh, so effective about. So I think I saw that halfway through this painting, and I thought, that's great. This is like a my what do you call it, a CV or something? What is
Yeah,
that? What does
yes.
that mean, CV?
Oh, correct.
Curriculum vitae or something. It's some Latin stuff. Yeah. So this is my uh,
Your CV.
yeah, this is my CV.
I like that. And then this painting, I noticed this in the middle, this like landform kind of thing was in a few other paintings. Do you the kind of looks
Oh
like puddle?
yes.
What is that?
Well, if you look into that form, you'll see that there's a images of some Native American uh, Indians
Mhm.
with kind of feather headdresses.
Mm.
I was driving through, I don't know, Arizona or New Mexico, and stopped at a pretty serious bar to use the bathroom. I remember it was a kind of place where people were wearing guns, uh, and there were guys at the bar with giant Bowie knives, like survivalist, sort of serious American West. And I felt very out of place, a little New York guy dressed in black, and these guys were. But anyway, the whole point is that there was a painting on the wall of the corridor that led to the bathroom, and it was this great painting of Indians. And so I took a photograph of that painting. The image on the top is a bunch of foam on a canal in Rotterdam.
Mm.
And a woman helped me merge those two photographs.
Oh, cool.
So it's, yeah.
That's awesome. And then I wanted to talk about this show that you did with your partner, Tamara Gonzalez. I love both of your work so much, and seeing it together was really special. And I just was curious what it was like working on the show together.
Well, it was a lot of fun. This was in the middle of the pandemic, and we never saw this show.
Oh no.
It went to the Pitt Gallery in LA, I think in Glendale, and we didn't travel. I don't think people were traveling. It looks like such a great show. I'm sorry that I never saw it.
I know. I was like, I saw it. I was like, this is an awesome show. And I love the title, Talking All Morning. I think that's such a sweet title for a show. Where does that come from?
Well, we have been talking to each other about painting and everything else for a long time, 20 years or something. Um,
Yeah. And then there was a 7-pointed star in the show, and I was just curious why the 7 points? Is the number significant to you?
I used to be interested in numerology a little bit. The number seven was my lucky number. I don't know what that means. Some people carry around a rabbit's foot or something. In the early days of New York, I had a job working at night on the wholesale cut flower market. And in the 70s, walking around downtown at night was a little bit, scary. And I used to, whenever I went out, I would put a nickel and two pennies in my pocket. I felt that could protect me from getting mugged. What does that mean? I don't know. So seven became a lucky number.
Hmm. 4 is my lucky number, and this episode's going to be number 4, so I have a good feeling about it.
Excellent.
And then, okay, I think I love this painting. Um, this painting I wanted to include because when I was thinking about your work yesterday and walking down the street, I found this on the street, if you can see me.
It looks like a plastic leaf or a real leaf.
It's a
Marijuana leaf.
it's a weed leaf air freshener. It's just in the middle of the road.
I love it.
And I was listening to Amy Winehouse, getting in the mood for this interview, and I was like, this is perfect. Um, but yeah, I love the use of the weed leaf just as like part of your paintings. Um, I think that it's such a cool symbol. When did you start using that in your work?
I can't remember. I grew up I was a teenager in the late 60s. So, black light posters and images of marijuana were somehow a symbol of freedom or counterculture or protest or whatever. It's quite amazing to me now that that this prohibition seems to be coming apart finally in America. So it's one of the few positive things that seems to be happening.
Yeah. And then I wanted to end the photos with I visited your painting that's up right now at the Brooklyn Museum. Um, and I really love how it's on the fourth floor, you take the north elevator up and you come to it and it kind of reveals itself. I tried to capture it in photo, but kind of like a moon to me. Like it kind of revealed itself through the wall and then it just was there with it. And I was taken back. I hadn't seen your work in person before, and I was taken back by how sparkly it was in person. It really is so sparkly. How do you get it to be that sparkly?
There's glitter in the
Yes.
painting. I throw glitter into wet paint.
Mm,
And think in this painting, I have these beakers of glitter, and I can actually draw with the beaker. The glitter comes out in a small stream, and I can draw spirals or simple forms by holding the beaker above the wet paint. So that's how I get forms of glitter in the paint.
yeah. And here are just some details. Um, and then I thought it was cool. You can see it from the other side
Oh,
a
wow, I
little
didn't know that.
bit. Yeah, and I like that because I know that you look at your paintings from far away a lot of the time. So I thought that was cool. If anyone is in Brooklyn and would love to see a Chris Martin painting right now, go to the Brooklyn Museum and check it out from this special vantage point because it's on this cool floor there. Um, but yeah, I really love the matchbook and all these things just kind of stapled in to it.
Well, it's very nice to have a painting up in a museum in Brooklyn. It's a great museum. And I want to say thank you to Alex Katz and the Alex Katz Foundation. Alex is a great painter. He's also an extraordinarily generous person who has used a lot of his success to help out poets and younger artists. And he buys a lot of paintings and donates them to different institutions. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. He's an amazing painter as well. Um, and that's really incredible. I think,
And the whole show is a show of all these paintings that the Alex Katz Foundation has given to the Brooklyn Museum, including a great Sigmar polka, a number of really interesting um, paintings, Martha Diamond painting. So it's cool.
yeah, no, it's a really cool show. And if you're in Brooklyn or visiting New York when you see this podcast, please check it out because really great work. Um, I think I'm going to wrap things up. I'm going to take this down. And I just wanted to ask some kind of like fun, random questions to end, um, if that's okay.
That's okay.
My first question is if you could be any animal, what would you be?
A human animal,
I like that. Um, Coffee or tea?
both.
Agreed. And then for the last question, what's your idea of a perfect day?
Being with people that I really love.
Love that. All right. Well, I'm going to stop this recording. Thank you for watching. All of you out there, thank you, Chris, so much for being down to do this interview. I really appreciate it. And to those watching, stay real, stay blessed. I love you. And see you soon. I'm just going to stop the recording.